Hello and welcome to another story time with your favorite storyteller, the man on the internet. Superheroes! Absolute waste of your tax dollars if you ask me. But our tax dollars don't pay for superheroes, I hear you say. And you're wrong, it's all a government conspiracy. Luckily, when I destroy the government, you won't have to worry about them. But unfortunately, until then, superheroes. Oh sure, they're an inspiration to society. People will believe a man can fly after watching a dude in a harness be hoisted about. But once that inspiration passes, you realize evil is a lot more fun. As long as it's properly communicated. See, if you're playing a tabletop game where everyone's a superhero, then, because it's a collaborative storytelling game, it should help to have everyone on the same page. Of course people are going to get together and pretend they can save people and be heroes and be Superman. It's just that some people, with their attitude, are more like Homelander. Today's story is about a dude who decides that being a superhero is a nominal thing, and he deserves the right to commit as many war crimes as possible, with his partner in crime that cries that it's cheating whenever actions have consequences. Today we have Superhero Stories Volume 1 by Frequent Brick 4608. I didn't see a Volume 2 at the time of recording, so for now it's just this volume. I run almost exclusively superhero games, and I don't see a lot of posts in the sub about them. So I figured I would post a couple in different posts and see if they get any traction, then post more. I've been running superhero games for a long time, so I have a lot if there's an interest. We'll start with Steve Galaxy and Grimsby. I ran a game in a city called North Rock, which had been separated from the rest of the world by a massive black dome, which, when studied, was revealed to be made of magic, psionic energy, and a circuity layer too. North Rock had a small cast of heroes in it. Most of them spent their time trying to keep the infrastructure of the city running, and the people alive. And as a result, the villains in the city were more or less unchallenged as they divided up the city. The players took on the role of heroes who were in the city when the dome came down, or grew up here and have risen to the challenge, meaning they were more or less the only heroes really active. A quick note, all dice in my games are rolled by the players out in the open. I never roll dice and offer players a chance to roll attacks against themselves, or pass it to another player. I inform the players of their bonuses before they roll. This includes when I roll dice to see which character gets attacked. A player rolls the die, and the attack is assigned according to that. There were something like 6 players, but only 3 are really important to the story. Steve Galaxy escaped from a containment facility in the city, wearing a spacesuit, containment suit. Has the ability to turn into the void of space and a list of space-themed powers. Grimsby, the Rat Man! A mutant rat, like a Ninja Turtle-style mutant animal. Powers include super hearing and super speed, 255 miles per hour. And a pretty capable hand-to-hand combatant. Hex, a witch who decided to be a superhero. Unique in that she has been placed inside the dome from outside by her mentor, who wanted to figure out what created this powerful magic. Hex is a returning character to the superhero games. All of my players have been playing with me for years at this point. Some people brought in characters they had played in prior games, and some made new ones. It's important to remember that I've been playing with these people for years now. So this game lasted a long time, so I'm not going to tell it in its entirety. Just the parts about Galaxy and Grimsby. The trouble all started when the players defeated a wizard supervillain, who had taken control of part of the city. They realized they had created a power vacuum, and needed to solve that quickly. Through a combination of their powers and quick thinking, they convinced the people in this part of the city that the supervillain had passed off stewardship of this district to Steve Galaxy. Galaxy was thrilled with this idea, and Grimsby decided to sell Galaxy as a sort of deific savior, which only made Galaxy more into the idea. They soon realized they couldn't sustain this and needed to move the people somewhere safer, as they didn't have the power needed to stop the forces of a neighboring supervillain's tribe from coming in and killing their people. So they visited another supervillain, Glimmer, who stylized himself as a sort of kingpin-type villain. Glimmer, seeing dollar signs and a new influx of people, agreed, and the players more or less saw him as the lesser of many evils. Galaxy suddenly realized he was giving up a lot of power in the form of influence and control over these people and their warship. He asks Glimmer, "What do we get for all these people we're giving you?" Glimmer is a little confused. He was ready to deal with superheroes, and before he can ready a response, Grimsby draws a knife and gets ready to kill Glimmer. Galaxy is quick and uses gravity to pin Grimsby to a wall, and demands payment for the lives he's trading. Worth noting that Hex was not present. Most of the other players weren't actually in the room, but Hex was in the city looking for another solution. Glimmer thinks quickly and offers Galaxy an absolute clubhouse of a nice place in his part of the city. Later, the heroes gather together to begin a migration of the civilians, telling them to gather their things. They realize they will need help, and Hex flies over the city, looking for other heroes. She's able to find a hero she's worked closely with most of her life, a vigilante known as Slayer and his team. She tells Slayer what the plan is, and he is horrified by the trading of human lives for a house. He informs her that he and his team, mostly unpowered people, will take watch over that part of the city. Hex is ecstatic. This appeals to her and most of the other people at the table. Galaxy and Grimsby's players are noticeably worried by this. Hex's player radios the rest of the team with these exact words: "Don't move the civilians. I found a friend. His name is Slayer. We can trust him. He is going to help us." Grimsby's player asks what they know about Slayer. I informed them that Slayer and his team of non-powered crime fighters are something of boogeymen to the criminal world. Villains fear Slayer because they think he might kill them. I also informed them that, as they are superheroes, they know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Slayer and his team have never killed anyone. Slayer's confirmed kills are people who were put into a witness protection program. Galaxy's player turns to Grimsby's player and says, "Do you want a trail of tears this shit?" Grimsby's player agrees. "Let's trail of tears this shit!" They then proceed to tell the civilians that Slayer is coming to kill them and they need to leave now. They cause a panic and a stampede. Slayer and his team arrive, and Slayer himself heads to the hospital with most of his team and the other PC superheroes to stop a raid on it that Glimmer had launched in the chaos. Quick interjection here. If a lot of players are ecstatic about a solution to help save a whole bunch of people, and 2 players are a little alarmed because it means they might not have a cool slave cabin, and when told, "Hey, we're coming to save the people," their immediate reaction is to reference genocide and attempt it, something has gone horribly wrong with communicating wants and needs, especially in a game that is allegedly about superheroes. You wouldn't see the Avengers pulling this shit, though it would be hilarious to watch if they tried. Anyway, let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. One of Slayer's men, Copperhead, arrives on a motorcycle to stop the stampede. Galaxy halts the stampede to hear out the man confronting him. Copperhead tells Galaxy that these people need to be taken back to their homes and stop before anyone gets hurt. Galaxy declares that he won't do that. The words he used were, "Their lives belong to me. I'll do what I want with them." Copperhead draws a submachine gun and aims it at Galaxy, who is currently flying well above the crowd. Now, in the system we're using, a mag dump can do a lot of damage. Galaxy's player knows this and realizes that if the NPC rolls really well, then he could lose control of his powers for a few seconds. Galaxy lowers himself into the crowd of people, and the player smirks at me from across the table. He declares, "I'm their god now." Copperhead is a good guy. He's not going to fire his weapon into a crowd and risk hitting someone who's not Galaxy. He puts his weapon away and gets onto his motorcycle, parting with a warning that Galaxy needs to stop this madness. Galaxy's response is to wait for Copperhead's motorcycle to get up to speed, and try to use gravity to take it out from under Copperhead, hoping to kill him. He misses and Copperhead gets away. Galaxy's player takes a few seconds and starts to reason out at the table that maybe this isn't the best course of action. Grimsby takes this as a sign that Galaxy is wavering and draws his weapon, firing it into the ground to cause a panic and begin the stampede again. Ultimately, this act kills 76 people in the stampede. Slayer receives the report and in anger storms off, getting ahead of the stampede. I ask Galaxy's player to roll a d20. Someone is firing at him. He demands to know from where. I explain that he can't hear the shot. Grimsby's player chimes in, declaring he has super hearing and wants to know where the gunshot came from. I inform them that I'll tell them after the hit is determined. Galaxy takes a single point of damage as a round bounces off him and directly into Grimsby's leg. I explain that the sound of the gun came from under a nearby bridge. While they are confused and spend several rounds of combat talking, Slayer, from incredibly far away with a silenced weapon, not like a normal silencer, one made by someone as smart as Tony Stark, has fired several more rounds, bouncing them off Galaxy and into Grimsby. The duo reach the bridge and find a gun rigged with a device to remotely pull the trigger and fire a blank. Grimsby's player accuses me of cheating, and declares they could never beat Slayer because the man whose only super ability is to be an extreme marksman and have a handful of toys is basically God. I ask him if he wants to continue to play and invite him to leave if he isn't happy. He picks a random direction and tells me that he's going to move at full speed in that direction looking for Slayer. I roll some dice and it turns out his random direction is directly at Slayer, hiding in a nearby tree line. When Grimsby arrives, he encounters Slayer, and unfortunately for him, loses initiative. Looking at Slayer's kit, I realize that he's got no tools to end this without basically killing Grimsby, so his only option is a trank gun. Slayer mag dumps this trank gun and knocks out Grimsby with enough to knock out a herd of elephants. Galaxy's player hears this and informs me that he's going to be after Grimsby. Hex's player and the rest of Slayer's team have arrived and are hot on Galaxy's heels. As they all start to move into the woods, I tell Grimsby's player, "You come too. It seems your biology burned through the tranquilizers. It seems Slayer has bound your wounds on your legs and your claws are cuffed behind your back." In-game, Slayer informs Grimsby that he's not the best medic. It's best not to struggle or fight, he might open his wounds. Grimsby's player is not happy about this. He openly declares that he feels Slayer God-modded. Galaxy arrives and remains in the air while the rest of the team discusses how to move forward. Galaxy's player asks how close everyone is. I inform him that everyone is kind of standing in a cluster. Grimsby's player asks if he is strong enough to break out of his cuffs. He's not, but I tell him he can burst them at any time because he's being kind of a baby about his bad decisions and I want to throw him a bone. Grimsby breaks the cuffs and takes his flashbang grenade out and drops it at his own feet. I ask him if he does anything else at all, like look away from the grenade. He tells me that he does not. I offer to him that he shouldn't do that, because with his super hearing, he's likely to damage his ears permanently. He insists and drops his grenade, stunning everyone, including himself. The player then informs me he wants to run to a nearby manhole. I inform him that he doesn't really know where that is because he's blinded himself. The player again accuses me of cheating and declares that he is only blind, the hole hasn't changed places. I shrug and tell him that he made the decision to blind himself. He should wait until it wears off. He says, "No, fuck that! I run!" I tell him he's going to start to bleed out from his open wounds. He accuses me of lying as Slayer patched the wounds. He is informed that Slayer does not have first aid and he was warned about this. I tell the party that the blinding is starting to clear, and Galaxy decides this is the moment to kill everyone. He starts to fire bolts of void at people, and the party returns fire, making sure that his arms no longer work. Everyone makes cold shots on his arms, turning the bones in his arms more or less to powder. It's not enough for Galaxy to fall out of his void form, and he tries another attack, one where he won't need to aim. He creates an area around the other heroes of vacuum. He declares this should kill the other heroes because they can't survive in space. He starts to gloat in character about how easy it was to kill them. I look up the power in the book and show him that this takes 2 minutes of exposure to knock people out with this power, and 5 minutes to kill them. Galaxy decides to flee. Hex has had enough, and takes Slayer on her broom, flying after Galaxy. Slayer fires his gun and deals enough damage to knock Galaxy out of his void form, causing him to lose the power of flight and fall to the ground. He declares he wants to use a tractor beam to lower himself to the ground. His arms are broken, but his tractor beam was a different power, so by the rules, this is allowed and I gave it to him. If he can roll a 20 because he can't move his arms to aim. Against all odds, he manages a 20, landing safely in the wooded park. Hex takes Slayer with her into the woods, and they use Slayer's godmodded tracking to follow a very obvious trail of blood from Galaxy. Galaxy points out that he has an illusion power too, and he wants to use that to hide. I ask him what he wants to turn into, and he declares he wants to take on the appearance of a hooker. This gives everyone pause, and I ask him if he's sure. If maybe he wants to turn into a tree? He says no, he wants to turn into a hooker. He has a plan. Slayer and Hex catch up to him, and Hex sounds more disappointed than anything when she says, "You could have been anything," while preparing her sleep spell. Galaxy says, "I guess I know when I'm beat," and Hex launches her spell, which Galaxy tries to dodge before saying, "But that shouldn't stop me from trying!" He fails to dodge and falls unconscious. Back with the rest of the group, Grimsby tries to take one of the NPC's weapons, while declaring he's going to kill all of them. This fails, and he says he's going to run for the sewer. Well, he is faster than anyone there, and he is pretty strong. He opens the grate and jumps into the sewers, bleeding profusely. The remaining PC heroes and the NPCs all rush for the sewer. I explain that I'm not rolling it out. His character is easily tracked and slowed. They are going to get tracked down and beaten by a large number of heroes. Astoundingly, the story doesn't end there. I play out the two of them in the holding cells the police have. Galaxy and Grimsby have both been healed, and are placed in cells that are made to hold superhumans. Grimsby is a quiet prisoner, and the slide on his cell is left open to allow him to speak to the guards. Galaxy acts like a child. One of the guards is reading a Bible, and he insults the guard and his god, until the guard closes the slide on his door. Later, at feeding time, the slide is opened, and Galaxy reaches an arm through to try and fire Void Blast at the guards, so he doesn't get fed. Grimsby is given a meal, and inside the apple is a message from Glimmer, telling him to wait, he's going to break him out. Galaxy does not get this message, so he uses toilet water and the cold aspect of his powers to make an ice knife. The guards bring one of the NPC heroes who's been working on the infrastructure, and they tell him, "We're going to put a device on you to strip your powers. It's going to have a bomb on it, a shaped charge that will blow a hole in your chest if you tamper with it." Galaxy's player tells me he's going to attack the second the doors open. Initiative is rolled, openly and in front of everyone, and Galaxy loses, which prompts Grimsby's player to accuse me of cheating again. Galaxy is pinned down, and the device is put on his chest. His powers leave him, and he is left in his cell. He then informs me that he hid his ice knife in the toilet. He did not, he never said this, but I let it slide. He says he wants to remove the device with the knife. I ask him if he's sure, and if he wants to cut the straps. I tell him, in no uncertain terms, that this will kill him. There is no roll to avoid it, he doesn't have the tools or the tech background to remove it safely, and he has no resistances or special abilities to stand up to a shaped charge on his chest. He confirms he wants to try to remove it, and I inform him of the result. To which both Galaxy's and Grimsby's players accuse me of cheating, and say there should have been a chance. Neither of these players are with my group anymore, and I haven't spoken to them in years. I ended up recycling Galaxy and using him as a villain in another game I ran. Now, having not played with this group for the apparently long time this campaign ran, I will grant you that I don't know the full history. I don't know how this group played together, I don't know the inter-party relations, I don't know what led up to all of this. But that being said, these two assholes are masters of disproportionate escalation. A man doesn't answer when he's thrown by a question, time to almost kill him. People are coming to save civilians like your job is as superheroes. Time to cause them to commit a mass act of terror. The rest of the party disagrees with your decision. Time to kill all the rest of the party and everyone who looks at you funny. Actions have consequences? Well, that's not you being a dumbass. That's the rest of the world, and specifically the Game Master, cheating to make your life specifically hard. all because you rolled low this time around. In the midst of this masterclass of fuck around and find out, however, I am wondering a couple of things. One, how exactly are the other players handling this? Like, I know Hex was very disappointed, but if two members of the party decide they're bored and they want to be murder hobos and derail the whole plot, thus forcing everyone else to try and contain their shenanigans, while they're hooting and hollering and everyone else is sighing and rolling their eyes and trying to get back to the reason they all came together to game, something has gone horribly wrong. PvP has its place in collaborative storytelling where everyone is okay and on board with PvP, but if it's something like the story implies, a sudden case of "Tee, I am so wacky and chaotic, I shoot my gun into the crowd and cause the stampede," then it's fun for just the one, maybe two people. And if the rest of the group isn't having fun, then it's not a very good game now, is it? But I invite discussion and gossip from you lowly peons about this. Would you have done what the DM did, and continued having them reap what they have sown until they were like, "Man, this sucks, what the fuck?" Would you have just stopped the session and been like, "We need to have a talk about what kind of game this is"? Or would you have chosen a third option, whatever that third option might be? Leave a comment about what you think. I'll read them for sure, but I may or may not regard them, because I'm an internet man with high standards, and if I find your opinion is garbage, you'll go into the bad opinion zone. Until then, this has been your humble host, the supervillain with the most, the man on the internet. Goodbye for now.